Welcome, Auvorians. Steve Vetterl on the mic. How is everybody doing today? Let's do a quick test, if I may. Make sure everybody can hear me okay. Can you guys hear me okay? All okay. Good. All right. Had to do a little reset of the headset mic. Let's go through the risk disclosure real quick. For those of you just joining us, my name is Steve Vetterl. They call me the CMA, but I'm your risk manager. Today is the 24th, just before Thanksgiving. I'm going to go through this real quick because, again, a lot of you guys have a lot better stuff to do than listen to me drone on. So a couple pieces and a couple of points of reference. Let me just go through the risk disclosure real quick, please. Trading the foreign exchange markets carries high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Trading on margin and utilizing leverage can have an even higher level of risk. It can lead to complete loss of investment funds. Before deciding to trade the foreign exchange market using any of our software alert products, you should carefully, diligently consider your personal investment objectives, level of experience, and risk tolerance. More importantly, can you afford to lose the money? So on the second page, make sure we get this screen shared correctly. On the second page, risk disclosure. If you're sharing any of our results from our software tools, which you really should only be doing the designated Facebook groups, please do not use the term company recommended settings. Auvoria Prime doesn't have any recommended settings, not a financial advisory firm. We don't own a broker. We can't see inside your brokerage account. We don't recommend brokers. There's very specific reasons for that, by the way. Some software does come with out of the box what they call default settings that you can adjust. That's the purpose of Dasan and Tyler's calls for Gearbox each week. Okay. So I will help with that once we get a little more of our kinks and bugs ironed out, which is very normal stuff in the release of software, albeit I do understand that with Variable, they have decided to roll back to version 1.06 from 1.07, which was released this week. So, and a lot of that has to do with the MAV stuff, and these are just about receiving notifications on the software. Do keep in mind that from what I understand, it is very difficult in software development if you have an automated system that's completely and fully trading to actually have an alert shot off to a very large scale group across a whole host of server farms of what they call the VPS, which stands for the virtual private server. So in that, as we continue to get those things ironed out, do understand that developers and or senior management, all of our leaders, including yours truly, are working a lot behind the scenes, and the guys in tech, much more so than I. So my hat's off to the people in the team back office that have been working really diligently to try and iron this stuff out quickly. Okay. I would ask, as I have been sounding from the cliffside highs over the last couple of months, that these things do need to be ironed out upon release. In some cases, it could take an entire quarter to iron some of this stuff out. That is my experience from trading software in the past. I hope I'm wrong on that statement. So with that being said, let's switch over real quick to all developers are trading this week. Do understand that Thursday is a formal holiday here in the US for Thanksgiving. Friday, half days trading on the markets, not in Forex, obviously, but in the equity markets for Black Friday, beginning of the holiday season. So let me switch over to a piece that I want everybody to take a look at. I actually suggest that you guys print this off, put it on your nightstand, because honestly, most of what I talk about, especially to some of the newer folks, this is one of the single best pieces, and this is on my Telegram channel. It's actually way back on the channel. I think I'm going to just repost this. So stay tuned for me to hit this with an update post of currents. You guys don't have to scroll through hundreds of posts in Telegram. This thing always drives me nuts about Twitter, right? But this is actually one of the core pieces of macro economics from a Forex standpoint. And I really think it does a fantastic job of explaining the difference between obviously appreciation and depreciation of a currency, but as it expressed in terms of another currency. So if you want to know the underlying strength of why is the US dollar weakening, right? These are the basic factors that can lead to the decrease of a particular country's currency. So I actually continue to look back to this. Explaining the balance of payments to clients is a difficult thing, even for some of my most sophisticated clients, which are mainly mathematicians and engineer types. But I think this is really good for the understanding. I have both of my younger children who are both under 16 of 8 years of age learning this stuff, because I think it's important for a core money supply foundation to understand how things work, whether it's exports, imports, GDP, all of that. Everything on here is completely pertinent to Forex movements in price. So as I talk about the charts, which I'm not going to get into too much today, but thought I'd make a mention of this as well. So that is the Forex piece. Let me close this out and shift the screen around. Yes, welcome to you guys. I see we have some new folks. We have a great show for you today, ladies and gentlemen. So let's shift over to, by the way, I'm actually going to open up Q&A window right now if you guys have any questions on anything. Do know that if you have any issues going on with Gearbox Variable, something that hasn't already been addressed in one of the public forums on their Telegram channels for the developers, do make sure everybody on your team is subscribed to Telegram. I highly suggest that put it on your phone as an app, regardless of whether you're Android or Apple. Have your subscribing to your different channels, just like you do to YouTube. Subscribing to different channels, which I'm going to show you a page as well on. But I think it's important to make sure that everybody on your team is getting timely communication of what's going on. And by the way, that was back in May that I posted that, so I'll repost the photo. All right. So as I mentioned, on Saturday, we have a pretty full week in terms of things going on in the U.S. holiday-wise, not as much news-wise in the U.S., albeit notice that the equity markets are rallying pretty decently this week, which is a typical Santa Claus melt-up or rally as we begin to get a little more insight into, will economies open back up? Will vaccines be effective globally, which is looking very positive? Will we get another stimulus or bailout? So for those of you surprised at why the market is rallying in equity land, and we'll take a look at some of the charts, obviously, on currencies, but these is just what's going on news-wise. So the FOMC minutes is due out tomorrow. I don't know this is going to be that big of a deal. Honestly, I don't really know if any of this stuff's going to be that big of a deal since we're already past all the big news events. Probably, if anything, just lower volumes this week due to holidays. Do keep in mind that you typically will see lower volumes around holidays because the big institutional traders, hedge funds, pension funds, family offices, endowments, whoever the trading group is, mutual funds, there's just a lot less volume. And there is danger, believe it or not, with less volume because you can have much more protracted moves in anything that you're trading. So just be aware of that. So this is the Auvoria Prime official YouTube channel. Let me make sure I post this in here. It's in the chat room if you guys are looking for a link. And I'll make sure that we get this link out to all attendees, which I always forget to do. There we go. So this is our main channel where you can see anything. If you don't feel like, peeling through the back office, this is a better way to get to any of my forecast calls, any of Dasan's stuff, as you can see here with Variable, anything that Tyler's talking about in Gearbox, company call updates. I mean, I really try and stay plugged into everything, A lot of the calls from the Iris coaching group. I don't talk too much about this because this is more manual trading, alerts. Essentially, it's a very good alert system. I don't think it gets enough exposure because these guys have actually been doing pretty well running sort of a live room, if you will, trading this. So Take a look at this. Lots of good stuff in there. I know that I just got a message from Dasan, and he's had a lot of his stuff muted since last night because he's been in a marathon of coding, from what I understand from him, trying to get the version 7 updated and so forth. So just know that. So let's go to the charts real quick. S&P potentially breaking out. I think a lot of people are looking for the market to sell off with the re-lockdowns, if you will, in certain draconian states in our 50 here in the U.S. But that's not the case. Market's looking ahead for potentially pulling out of this pandemic globally with a number of vaccines. So gold slightly selling off. Notice we have a little bit of a bigger candle here in gold. Now, do note that as we look at the US dollar, this is just a simple daily chart, tradingview.com. I've been looking at this a lot. You notice we were just like hanging on the edge of the cliff right here. Let me see if I can make this bigger. There we go. Really only looking at a few months of trading, but we've been in a very tight range. And obviously we've had a lot of things to get through. A lot of people have been paying attention to a lot of other factors, obviously, for elections, pandemic related issues, bailouts. You know, there's been a lot of things that have drugged the dollar down to this point, but it's been fairly quiet with a lot of dojis recently. And these are these little teeny candles you see printing right here. These usually are a foretell of some larger move to come. Right? So you have pundits out there saying, hey, they're going to rip back up to this high. I'm saying, although I'm not necessarily a pundit, I don't base anything I do publicly on forecasting acumen. Forecasters are just like everybody. We all, you know, have opinions and so forth, and some are right and some are wrong. But charts don't lie. Fundamentals can, people can, certainly the news can, but charts don't lie. And what they're showing right now is that this wants to break below. Now, the question is as a MAV version of software, which is really just the US users of the software, whether it be whether it be Alexander, Variable, or Gearbox, you know, which sends you an alert and you accept it, does the trade. Do you want to be accepting a lot of shorts on the euro US dollar if the dollar breaks lower, right? So if we take a look at the euro US dollar, most are trading this currency as one inside of a group of pairs, regardless of what software you have. I think this is just going to break. I don't know when. It could be after December, right? Hell, it could be after January 20th, when whoever the hell is going to be taking over the administration or keeping the administration, you know, either keeps power or shifts the balance of power to the next administration, right? We would have to wait to that period of time to see any kind of protracted moves in this dollar euro. But I still think this is front and center as far as the only things outside of what I'm looking at. You know, obviously taking cues from the legislative and executive branches of some of the big countries we follow in developed markets land, right? And then taking cues from what changes in policy may be coming down the road that could affect the underlying currencies of countries. So for the GBP USD, again, back up towards, on just the daily chart here, back up towards the highs, and we haven't seen these highs since December. You know, and this is due to Brexit, right? As maybe being a better day for the GBP and the folks in the UK. Also, in exchange, the weakness in the dollar for this rally. So that's kind of what I'm seeing right here. A lot of people in Forex trading, in essentially the institutional traders, you know, want to see what this does when it pokes above this level, right? Will it continue to take off? Will it run a bunch of stops? It certainly could be, but I would look to the dollar first. So kind of sound like a broken record the last few months, but I always try and talk aloud. It helps me sort of pull out anything that I may have forgotten in reading the charts just from a real basic standpoint. So do note that with Variable as an example, Dasan will put out his developer insight recap. Not sure if you guys have ever seen what that looks like, but the developer recap, I would highly suggest. Let me just make sure I show this here so everybody gets a feel for this. We don't see the, let me just shift over. Let me shift over the screen here. So here is the dollar. Looks like I'm having some chart issues here. All right, cool. So this is the US dollar, kind of what I talked about just before here. And we're seeing my charts. It's dropping down to the bottom. S&P, for some of you are asking the question. So we're approaching a new high. Typically, you'll see a Santa Claus rally. A lot of this, I think, is also due through this whole period of time, for that matter, is due to another bailout to essentially approaching now. What I'm hearing in terms of market sniffing out is a good 2 to 4 trillion in a second stimulus package. Because let's face it, there's a lot of people in this country just getting completely clobbered in these lockdowns with restaurants and so forth. So, our heart goes out to you guys, but stay steady and fast if you have the ability to. Moving over to the dollar. About to fall off the ledge, in my opinion, down towards the 85 area. May not happen until after the first of the year. GBP USD right here. Looking to, as you can see, big area it's coming up against. This big area of resistance up in this whole 34 area. Every time it's gotten up to this area since December of last year, it's sold off from this point. Okay. A lot of people ask the question, why did Euro and GBP roar down during this period of time? And, if you go all the way back, whoops, let me just go back to the dollar here. During the pandemic, why did the dollar roar up? And most of it is because when things get absolutely crazy, the true store of value on this planet is the US dollar and gold. And that's why you've seen a steady climb over that period of time in gold. So true stores of value, even though arguably the dollar, it's another evil in currency land, right? But it is perceived in pandemic or a crazy black swan based events, which you certainly could probably say this was, as a store of value, so people will flock towards it. Let's take a look at the USDJPY, and then I'll answer some questions. I'm going to show you Dasan's channel in case you guys don't have that link. I tell you honestly, with our team, every single one of the questions that our team had, it could have been solved without chasing your up and down line guys, by just subscribing to the variable channel or Gearbox, whether you're using one or the other or both. So just know that. I should say untech related questions. So looking at USDJPY here, we're in a trend down channel, which has almost been perfect as far as hitting the top part of the downtrend, pulling back, going to the bottom. I should probably extend these lines down. But essentially you can see how the channel is sort of playing out. Anything outside of this channel is when I'd be very cautious from a risk manager standpoint. And arguably these green lines aren't the best laid out, but let's try that. A little bit better. Anything outside of these lines gets crazy. So as far as accepting trades when stuff's outside these lines, I know the way I teach technical analysis, it's difficult because a lot of people have a tendency to say, well, what happens when it gets out of Steve's support and resistance areas, which really aren't mine. It's just stuff that I've laid out on the charts and trading view. You can set this up yourself. It's very easy to do, very affordable. To the very least to have an understanding of what's going on from a daily chart perspective without drilling down too much deeper into that. You could stick to just weeklies and dailies. But if you look over the course of a weekly chart, which is what I've just backed up to here, you can see how we've been in a very defined downtrend channel. And it will probably continue to do so until we hit some big point lower, like probably somewhere in the area of the bottom of this channel, which corresponds to, hell, you have to look all the way back to a monthly chart to see where the true edge of the cliff is. And that's right down here around the 100.5 area. You know, literally arguably all the way down a full 50 pips into 100 as far as this currency conversion. This is really the ledge right here, guys. If we get below this, you're trading this, or your system is, and you're accepting trades on this, I probably would not be taking any longs if we spend a couple of days below this line, because it's probably just going to fly, as you saw it did back in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months throughout the course of, we haven't been under this area in 7 years. So it's getting near the edge. Let's keep that in mind. Because I'm getting some questions on this. Let me just share this screen real quick. And while I'm sharing it, so this is the variable channel. If you do not have a subscription to this, just let me know. Go through some of these questions. Deep dive into the Telegram chart and video form around the show. Much. Are you planning to do a deep dive into that Telegram chart in a video? It's actually a good idea, Clara. I hadn't planned on doing that. Do keep in mind for the onboarding videos, which have turned out fantastic, by the way. I try and push everybody through it, whether they give me any pushback or not. I'm like, watch the videos. And some of them, especially for many of our newest subscribers who have very little, if any, experience with what a trading account is, what Forex is, what's a brokerage account. Ryan and I are actually going to be shooting a Q&A video that will be part of the onboarding that literally is going to go through just the core basics. So if you guys want, if you think there'd be any value in this, essentially, if I was to go in and talk about that chart, it would really be nothing more than me teaching a macroeconomics class in Forex. So if you think there'd be value in that, let me know. So this is the tough question. Ron asks, Steve, variable Telegram said if we have trades and profit, it would be wise to close them now. What happens to the funds in drawdown once the downgrade to V? I don't know the answer to that question, Ronald. I know that seems probably counterintuitive to read it and not have an answer, but I think this is an important question. So I know that you can always go into any software and just click auto trading off, right? This will turn off your alerts, or if you're an Einstein, it'll turn off the trading. But it does keep the open trades still in management by the software. So I would assume that it would continue to be that way. And just understand, from all the FX books everybody's seen for variable, not a lot has changed. The issues have been, we're putting the software on a VPS and we're now releasing it to thousands of subscribers, right? And in the case of the US, which I still think is a complete pile of crap in my opinion, I just don't go for our previous law firm saying that the US has to receive manual alerts. I don't believe it. So that's kind of why I want our firm, which we're working towards, to get a second opinion, if you will, from a CFTC attorney-based law firm, which is what we're in the process of doing as far as vetting out bids with 4 firms right now. I've been very vocal about that, because I think this MAV version of the software, I don't think we need it. But I'm not going to play CFTC attorney Steve and be wrong. It's just a whiff that I have, knowing compliance laws for the last 22 years, especially if there's disclaimers galore. In any case, and the reason I say that is because in futures land in this country, there exists plenty of automated trading systems that have been built by a group and disseminated to a large subscriber base. So don't know the answer to that, Ron. Wish I did. More than likely, I think it will continue to manage its trades, even though you're turning off new ones. Good question, though. You can ask Dasan that if you wish. You want me to ask Dasan that? Let me know. All right, let's see what else. Thank you. Lots of compliments in here, guys. Appreciate that. We're working hard. the All right, I'll do that, Ron. I tell you, this just seems like a really stupid thing to share, but I'm going to share it anyway. One of the single best things I've ever been taught in business, guys, and I have credit, full credit, to be given to the first big organization I worked for way back in 97 through 2002. And that was Fidelity Investments. I was a trader, uh, financial planner, financial advisor, financial rep, whatever you want to call the role, for almost 5 years, won a whole bunch of President's Circle awards. But the coolest thing that Fidelity ever taught me is that everything in business, in life, is about managing expectations. And that if proper expectations are not set, it's almost always where communication breaks down between two humans or an organization as a corporation. Almost every PR disaster, if you look at it from a perspective of an institutional trader or corporate, has come from the fact that there has been terrible communication. Right now, we can always look back and armchair quarterback that, but I always take it a step further and I properly set expectations. So whether it's my children, what I'm expecting of them, right? Education wise, respect for your elders, whether it's, clients, what can they expect with a relationship with me? What can they expect from the markets? What can they expect in the financial planning process, or me actively managing the portfolio manager, running the team for them? It's all about setting proper expectations. We're not trying to forecast and get it right, right? But if you're setting proper expectations and you're not trying to promise the moon, which I come across way too much in this industry. Everybody's always promising, oh yeah, we could do this, we'll get you 30%, we'll get you on boarded with variable in 10 minutes. And you're not setting proper expectations. You're setting yourself up for failure, right? This is such an important subject that not only Tony Robbins, but all of his henchmen, Grant Cardone, all those guys, they spend entire chapters in a book on proper expectations. So if you're going to improve your life from a trading perspective, or, I don't care if it's spirituality, if it's education, if it's, family, interpersonal communications, it's all going to be better if you're setting proper expectations, under promising and overachieving. So I'll just leave it at that. I'll get off my podium. All right. Yeah, I take the email from you, Ron. I'll see if I can get an answer for you. Now, I know that's something that needs to be released to everybody, honestly. So what I have asked, which we had our board meeting on Monday, what I have asked, that was brought up actually, in all fairness, to credit to some of the other leaders brought this up, is a specific video from each developer on if something's not working right with the software, you don't like or don't want any current trades going on, what strategically can you do to stop it from trading other than just turning off the auto trader button, which can affect all of the trades going forward, right? And not be great at managing the existing trades that are on the platform, whether you're in drawdown or not, right? So it's going to be slightly different in how that's presented. I have been told by management to stick to the macro, right? Stick to the big picture, talk about markets, talk about risk, so forth. And I like the advice because, quite frankly, I have not been, gone through literally line by line like I have with Einstein and Alexander of everything that's going on. So I could talk ad nauseum about settings, and all that type of stuff. And I purposely have stayed out of that, especially with, I personally think that we need to just iron out a few more things. I don't know that necessarily settings are going to change in variable, but in terms of the stability of the software on a large platform of subscribers, we've been quite stable in my opinion, but I want it to be perfectly ironed out. And then I'm going to go in, and Hassan is going to go through with me specifically, what he looks for each week, how the settings affect different stuff. There's calculators associated with that we can use. Internally, we cannot disseminate these calculators to subscribers, but I can promise you they exist in your up and down line. And just understand that is a big gray area. with the FTC and the CFTC in this country, because those calculators, which are almost Excel spreadsheet formats, they show performance numbers. So we cannot disseminate that as a group because people would have the ability to go in and change performance numbers around, right? It'd be like if I gave you a calculator in your 401k or your IRA and it just, put together different scenarios of mutual funds and their allocations and would show you the performance of that. You're basically promising, although it seems strange even with disclaimers, but you're actually promising performance according to our regulators. That's a no-no. So if you're wondering why we don't disseminate them, that's the reason. All right. So let's see what we got here. All right, so let me shift back here. Euro JPY is the last chart I want to talk about real briefly. Let's just go to the daily here. Not the best read of this, but certainly the 22 area. It's big area support. I think the problem with this particular currency pair and a lot of the miners, at least from a technical analysis standpoint, is that everything is, in my opinion, is driven right now from the dollar. At some point that could change, right? So when Brexit was forefront, GBP was swinging everything else around, right? So it was almost pin action off of the dollar. Whereas right now, hard to determine because the JPY, which is one reason I try and stay away from this, literally Japan is in their own central banking planet, right? Most of the discussions of that Forex chart, if I was to overlay it over how the Japanese choose to run a monetary system, everything would be reversed, right? It's a mess. So I try to stay away from that because frankly, I don't understand money supply in Japan, right? I try to stay away from that because they adhere to a lot of stuff I just don't agree with in macroeconomic land. Whether you're looking at, M1 money supply through M3, which is just a number that's extrapolating different types of components in it, full GDP versus just, the flow of dollars in the chart. But I think probably what I'll do is, because I know a lot of people can get confused on this, even many that have actually taken macroeconomics classes, is to show like real world examples as we go through the chart. And as I begin to explain the difference between appreciation and depreciation and all the factors that are associated with it, which is what I think is a great piece. See if I can maybe present it, like a Khan Academy would, right? Like a because we have our kids actually do a lot of Khan Academy, which is a sort of like a outside homeschooling in addition to, the online learning that they do. Because they don't have their kids in school. The interesting thing about this, guys, I don't know if you pay attention to this, but even though there's a lot of lockdowns going on in Europe, you notice almost all the kids are in school. Take that for food for thought, huh? The GBP NZD circle in the bottom of the drain right here. So there's an exploded view. So you can see where we are. I personally, through the next couple of months, would probably not be trading this currency because of the simple fact that it's been quite quiet in this, and that more than likely there's going to be something bananas coming out of this area, right? Just my own personal opinion. Wow, surprising. Nicola in a rally mode. All right, getting off track here. What else I want to say? Oil. This is probably head fake. I think we'll probably go back in. Some points in the past, oil's actually led a lot of other things around. Not necessarily the dollar, but certainly equity markets. This commodity really has taken second and third burner to a lot of the stuff that's on the front of the burner. All right, so that's pretty much it. I don't really have anything else to go through. Let me show this real quick just in case. Anybody that has had MAV problems with variable, I want you to post something in the chat room. And have you gotten your problem solved? Remember, this is not me, Steve Vetterl, holding a help desk, right? It's just I want to know if you guys have had any issues, because nobody on my team has, and most of them have. Actually, everybody has variable, and they all have the MAV version because everybody's in the U.S. I don't know if you guys have had any problems here with the MAV version. I don't know how widespread some of these glitches are, but either way, regardless of whether it is or not, it's all going to be ironed out, guys. So have some patience, please. Now, so this is the variable channel. The only thing I just can't stand about Telegram is you just can't like go in and like find the link to share, you know? So what I've done is I put in the back office with my weekly notes, I put the link to both of these channels in there, which I don't have open right now. But just go in and subscribe to the channel. This is the variable channel right here. So backing up, essentially clawing back the 1.07 update to 1.06 manage trades from the previous version. This is all risk management right here. Okay. So if you do have trades in profit, it'd be wise to close them now while they get this straightened out. Okay. So for the international users, essentially the non-MAV users, they weren't having any issues. It was just asking for. So if the way I read into this, without just dissecting this and wasting too much more of this discussion on this, is that it's almost like the software just thinks everybody globally wants the non-MAV or wants the MAV version. I don't know how easy of a fix that is. So do understand also, which I think is important in this last piece of this communication, this falls under that guise of setting proper expectations, right? So one, and this was our big thing on the calls for our board meeting on Monday, is, we're going to be beefing up protocols for updates and future releases, as you really would never want to put anyone's money at jeopardy, at risk. It's unacceptable for all of us, and we continue to strive to be better in delivering better technologies in the world. So with a whole bunch of people that have come into our team from a couple of really big builders we've been fortunate to connect with, we have almost mandated across the entire group that they be in demo for 4 weeks. Some of them want to be in demo through the whole holiday season. I don't have a problem with that, okay? Because as I've told everybody, at least in our team, we have stuff to iron out, okay? It's not necessarily a bad thing. For those impatient that say we should have had this fixed 3 or 4 months ago, we hear you. But honestly, guys, this is not an organization where we have, an entire call center help desk back there. At some point we will, but it's a very capital intensive building out, back office technology and help desk and all that. I think they've done a tremendous job, but do understand that Bill Wynn, Josh, 2 of the owners of the firm, all of their guys, Omar, certainly Patrick, I mean, these guys deserve Emmys, in my opinion, or forget about the Emmy. They deserve an Oscar for their performance in this area. So whether you guys know that or not, I want to communicate that, just because I'm now hanging under my expectations of setting proper, right? But these guys have done a really good job. So we'll iron it out. We'll add more to the teams as far as help. But continue to put tickets in the back office for anything that's not showing up, because they do need to track data. Okay. And that's it. Anybody got any questions on anything? Surprisingly enough, I went 45 minutes of jabbering on. So, but I'll wish everybody, for those celebrating the holiday in the U.S., happy Thanksgiving. Steve Vetterl, wishing you a great holiday week. Thank you for the patience and understanding, and may the trades be with you.